The massive space station Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars like a metal city. Its lights twinkled against the black void as ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports. Inside the main council chamber, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. Ambassador Kelton Voss of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the center of the room. His tall, thin frame and pale blue skin made him look like a walking ice sculpture. His eyes glowed with a cold light as he spoke to the assembled delegates. "Fellow council members," Voss said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber, "we face a crisis that threatens the stability of our galaxy. The newest member of our council is under attack." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some delegates looked concerned, others seemed almost pleased. At the back of the room, Admiral Carl Hayes sat alone at the human delegation table. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands were clenched into fists. "The human colonies on the outer rim have suffered 7 attacks in the past month," Voss continued. "Unknown forces are striking at their settlements with advanced weapons. Ships appear from nowhere, destroy key buildings, then vanish before any help can arrive." Thais of the hegemony raised one of her forearms. Her insect-like features clicked as she spoke. "Perhaps this is what happens when a species expands too quickly. Humans have made many enemies with their rapid growth." Several other delegates nodded in agreement. The Altarians, who had once been friendly to humans, now whispered among themselves. Even the peaceful Verdani seemed nervous whenever Admiral Hayes looked their way. Far from the political games on Nexus Prime, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defiant. The vessel was sleek and powerful, but small compared to the massive warships of older galactic civilizations. Through the viewscreen, he could see the ruins of Haven Colony spread across the planet below. "Report, Lisa," Morrison said to his second-in-command. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park looked up from her console, her face grim. "Same pattern as the other attacks, Captain. They hit the power plant, the communications array, and the spaceport. No civilian areas touched." Chief Engineer Pete Collins shook his head as he studied the damage readings. These attackers knew exactly what to hit. They didn't waste a single shot. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, the ship's medical officer, had just returned from the colony. 23 injured, no deaths. The colonists said the ships appeared without warning, fired for exactly 3 minutes, then disappeared. Morrison frowned. "It's like they're sending a message instead of trying to kill people." Communications Officer Ryan Kim looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange in the debris. The blast patterns don't match any known weapon signatures in our database. Download everything to the tactical computers," Morrison ordered. "Sandra, I want you to analyze every detail." Tactical analyst Sandra White nodded as data flowed across her screens. "Already on it, sir. But Captain, these weapon signatures, they're unlike anything I've ever seen." Back on Earth, Director Helen Cruz sat in her office deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The Strategic Defense Initiative headquarters buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from across human space. Every attack followed the same pattern, and every attack left more questions than answers. Dr. Nathan Brooks burst into her office, his usually neat appearance disheveled from hours of work. "Helen, you need to see this." "We finally got some wreckage from the Meridian attack." Cruz followed him to the main laboratory where pieces of twisted metal lay on examination tables. The fragments gleamed with an odd, almost crystalline quality that seemed to bend light around them. "The material composition is completely unknown," Brooks explained. "It's like they used quantum manipulation to create something that shouldn't exist. The technology required for this is decades ahead of anything we have." "Decades ahead of anything anyone has," Cruz corrected. "I've seen the classified files on every species in the Council. None of them have quantum manipulation technology." On Nexus Prime, the emergency session continued into its 4th hour. Ambassador Voss had presented his proposal to the Council, and the vote was about to begin. "The motion before us is simple," Voss announced. "Until this security crisis is resolved, humanity should be placed under Council protection. All human expansion must cease, and Council forces will patrol human space." Admiral Hayes finally stood up. His voice was steady but cold. "The motion is noted. However, Earth respectfully declines Council protection." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Voss's glowing eyes narrowed. "Admiral, surely you understand the gravity of the situation. Your colonies are under attack by forces you cannot identify or defend against." "We can defend ourselves," Hayes replied. We've been doing it since before we knew other species existed. Dice clicked her mandibles in what might have been laughter. Your pride will be the death of your species, human. Accept help while it is still offered. Thank you for your concern, Hayes said, his tone making it clear he was anything but thankful. But humanity has faced worse odds before. As the session ended, Hayes noticed something troubling. Several delegates seemed remarkably well informed about the attacks. They knew details that hadn't been shared in the official reports. Either they had their own intelligence networks in human space, or they knew more about the attackers than they were admitting. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison received new orders from Earth Command. Instead of continuing rescue operations, the Defiant was to begin hunter-killer patrols. Earth was done playing defense. Set course for the Epsilon sector, Morrison ordered. If these attackers want to play games, we'll give them something to think about. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, Morrison stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an enemy was striking at humanity with weapons that defied explanation. The Council seemed more interested in politics than justice. But humans had always been at their best when their backs were against the wall. The unknown attackers had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that humanity would react like other species, seeking protection and following the rules set by older civilizations. They didn't understand that humans had a different approach to problems. When someone hit humanity, humans hit back twice as hard. The hunt was about to begin, and the attackers were about to learn why it was dangerous to underestimate the newest members of the galactic community. They had wanted to send a message to humanity. Soon humanity would be sending a message of their own. The reports arrived every few hours now, each one painting a clearer picture of the attacks on human colonies. Captain Morrison stood in the war room aboard the Defiant, studying the holographic display that showed every known strike. Red dots marked the locations where the mysterious enemy had appeared, struck, and vanished. "There's definitely a pattern here," said Sandra White, pointing to clusters of attacks. "They're not hitting random targets. Every colony that's been attacked made a significant discovery in the past 6 months." Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park pulled up the files on her tablet. New Harmony found those rare mineral deposits. Phoenix Station developed improved fusion reactors. Frontier Base discovered alien ruins with advanced technology. Communications Officer Ryan Kim nodded from his station. "It's like someone's keeping track of our progress and doesn't want us to get too far ahead." Morrison studied the data with growing unease. How would anyone know about these discoveries so quickly? Most of this information was classified. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had been quiet during the briefing, but now she spoke up. "Captain, I've been thinking about the attack patterns. The precision, the surgical strikes, the minimal casualties. This isn't how most species wage war." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "Most alien species we've encountered fight either for total conquest or complete destruction. These attacks are different. They're designed to slow us down, not stop us entirely." Chief Engineer Pete Collins brought up technical readouts on the main screen. "I've been analyzing the weapon signatures from all the attacks. The energy patterns are consistent, but there's something strange about them." "Strange how?" Morrison leaned forward. "The weapons seem to use multiple technologies that shouldn't work together. It's like someone took the best features from different civilizations and combined them into something new." Back on Earth, Director Helen Cruz was having her own troubling discoveries. Dr. Nathan Brooks had been working around the clock with the wreckage from the attacks, and his findings were deeply disturbing. "The materials are definitely artificial," Brooks explained as they walked through the laboratory, "but the construction methods are unlike anything in our databases. However, I did find something interesting." He led her to a microscopic analysis station where fragments of the enemy ship glowed under special lights. "See these molecular structures? They match alloys that are used by 3 different council species." Cruz felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying the attackers are using council technology?" "Not exactly. It's more like they're using the best elements from different council technologies and combining them in ways that shouldn't be possible." "Who would have access to technology from multiple council species?" Brooks looked grim. "Someone with a lot of resources and very high-level connections." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, Admiral Hayes was having his own problems. The council sessions had become increasingly hostile toward humanity. Ambassador Voss seemed to take pleasure in every report of new attacks. "Perhaps," Voss said during one session, Humanity should consider that their rapid expansion has made them too many enemies. A wise species would consolidate their holdings and focus on defense. The Zephyrian Empire expanded rapidly when it first joined the Council. Hayes replied coolly, as did the Hegemony and the Altarians. Are you suggesting they should have been more cautious? Thys of the Hegemony clicked her mandibles in annoyance. That was different. We had proven ourselves in battle. Humans are still untested. Untested? Hayes almost smiled. We fought 2 world wars, survived nuclear weapons, and explored space while most species were still discovering fire. I think we've been tested enough. The session continued with more veiled threats and political maneuvering. But Hayes noticed something that made his blood run cold. Several delegates seemed to know details about the attacks that hadn't been shared publicly. When Voss mentioned the precision targeting of infrastructure, he was describing something that Earth hadn't released in their official reports. Either the Council had spies throughout human space, or some of its members were involved in the attacks themselves. Captain Morrison's patrol through the Epsilon sector had been quiet for 3 days when communications. Officer Ryan Kim picked up something unusual. Captain, I'm detecting a faint energy signature about 2 light hours away. It matches the readings from the attack sites. Morrison felt his pulse quicken. Battle stations. All hands to alert positions. The crew of the Defiant moved with practiced efficiency. Sandra White coordinated targeting systems, while Pete Collins pushed the engines to maximum power. Dr. Rodriguez prepared the medical bay for possible casualties. Approaching the coordinates. Now, reported the helmsman. I'm not seeing anything on visual. Keep scanning, Morrison ordered. If these attackers can appear and disappear at will, they might be. Alarms blared throughout the ship as 3 vessels suddenly materialized around them. The ships were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Sleek, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around their hulls. Incoming fire. White shouted. Energy beams lanced out from the mysterious ships, but Morrison was ready. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. The Defiant twisted through space as its weapons blazed. The enemy ships moved with impossible grace, their crystalline hulls reflecting the weapon fire in strange patterns. Their hulls are absorbing our energy weapons, Collins reported. Switching to kinetic rounds, physical projectiles had better effect, cracking the crystal-like armor of the lead ship. But the enemy vessels fought with coordinated precision that spoke of years of training. Captain, Kim called out, I'm intercepting their communications. They're using multiple encryption systems that match Council protocols. Morrison gritted his teeth as the ship shook under enemy fire. Record everything. We need proof of what we're seeing. The battle lasted only minutes before the enemy ships began to retreat. As they prepared to vanish again, one of them suffered a critical hit that sent it spinning out of control. Tractor beam, Morrison ordered. Don't let it escape. The damaged ship fought against the Defiant's tractor beam, but its systems were failing. As Morrison watched, the vessel's hull began to crack, revealing the technology inside. What he saw made his blood freeze. Zephyrian neural interfaces controlled the automated systems. Altarian power cores fueled the weapons. Hegemony navigation systems guided the ship through space. Lisa, get me a secure channel to Admiral Hayes immediately. Morrison said quietly. Tell him we need to talk privately. What we've discovered here changes everything. As the captured enemy ship was brought aboard the Defiant, Morrison realized that humanity's real enemy wasn't some unknown force from beyond the galactic rim. Their enemy was much closer to home, sitting in the very halls where humanity sought friendship and cooperation. The galaxy's most respected species, the ones who claimed to value peace and cooperation, were the ones trying to destroy human progress. The question was why and how deep the conspiracy went. One thing was certain. The war that was coming would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Because humanity was about to learn that sometimes the greatest enemies were the ones who smiled while shaking your hand. The captured enemy ship sat in the Defiant's cargo bay like a broken crystal sculpture. Its strange hull still glowed faintly with residual energy, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Captain Morrison, Dr. Amy Rodriguez, and Chief Engineer Pete Collins stood before the vessel, preparing to uncover its secrets. The hull is definitely artificial, Collins reported, running his scanner over the crystalline surface. But the construction methods are beyond anything we understand. It's like they grew the ship instead of building it. Dr. Rodriguez activated her medical scanner as they approached the ship's interior. I'm detecting 3 life forms inside. They're alive but unconscious. Morrison nodded grimly. Let's see who's been attacking our colonies. They entered the ship through a hull breach caused by the Defiance weapons. The interior was just as strange as the outside. Curved walls that seemed to pulse with inner light. Control panels that responded to thought rather than touch. And systems that hummed with power even though the ship was disabled. At the center of the ship, they found the crew. Morrison stared in shock at what he saw. The 3 figures in the command chairs weren't members of some unknown alien species. They were very familiar faces indeed. The first was a Zephyrian, his pale blue skin marked with the neural interface ports that connected him directly to the ship's systems. The second was an Altarian, her multiple arms still twitching as she remained linked to the power management console. The third was a member of the hegemony, his insectoid features hidden behind a breathing mask connected to the ship's life support. My God, Rodriguez whispered. They're council species. All of them. Collins was already examining the ship's systems with growing amazement. Captain, you need to see this. The technology in this ship isn't just advanced. It's a combination of the best systems from multiple civilizations. Morrison followed Collins to the main control console. Even damaged, the ship's computer systems were still active, displaying information in multiple alien languages. The navigation system is pure hegemony design, Collins explained. The weapons are Zephyrian neural link technology. The power core is Altarian fusion, but modified beyond anything I've seen. Someone took the best from each species and built something completely new. But who has access to technology from all these different civilizations? Morrison asked. The answer came from Communications Officer Ryan Kim over the intercom. Captain, you need to hear this. I've been analyzing the communication logs from the captured ship. They've been in contact with someone on Nexus Prime. Morrison felt his stomach drop. Patch me through to Admiral Hayes. Priority Alpha encryption. Minutes later, Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen in Morrison's ready room. His face was grim, and Morrison could see the strain of the past few weeks in the lines around his eyes. Jake, tell me you have good news, Hayes said. Sir, the attackers aren't unknown aliens. They're council species working together. We captured one of their ships, and it's equipped with technology from the Zephyrians, Altarians, and Hegemony. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. That explains a lot. I've been noticing that certain council members seem remarkably well informed about the attacks. They know details that weren't in our public reports. It gets worse, sir. The ship was receiving orders from someone on Nexus Prime. The conspiracy goes all the way to the top of the council. How many species are involved? Morrison looked at his notes. At least 3 that we can prove. But given the coordination and resources required, probably more. Hayes nodded slowly. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the human leadership. Can you get that ship back to Earth? Already on our way, sir. After the call ended, Morrison sat alone in his ready room, trying to process what they had discovered. The galaxy's most respected civilizations, the ones who preached peace and cooperation, were secretly working to destroy human progress. But why? The answer came 2 days later when they reached Earth. Director Helen Cruz and Dr. Nathan Brooks had been analyzing the captured ship alongside the wreckage from previous attacks. Their findings painted a terrifying picture of the conspiracy's scope. It's not just about stopping human expansion, Cruz explained during the emergency briefing. It's about keeping us weak and dependent on the Council. Dr. Brooks pulled up a holographic display showing the pattern of attacks. Every target was chosen to slow down human technological development. They hit our fusion research, our mineral extraction, our archaeological sites. They're trying to prevent us from becoming a major galactic power. Admiral Hayes studied the data with cold fury. How long has this been going on? Based on the communication logs from the captured ship, at least 2 years, Brooks replied. The planning for this operation began shortly after humanity joined the Council. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. From the very beginning, certain Council members had been planning to sabotage human progress. There's more, Cruz added. We intercepted a coded transmission from Nexus Prime. There's going to be a vote next week to strip humanity of its Council membership and place all human colonies under Council administration. For our own protection, I assume, Hayes said bitterly. That's exactly what they're claiming. They're going to use the attacks as proof that humanity is too weak to govern itself in space. Captain Morrison, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. "What are our options, sir?" Hayes looked around the room at Earth's military and political leadership. These were people who had guided humanity through its first steps into the galaxy. Now they faced the greatest challenge in human history. "We have 3 choices," Hayes said. "We can submit to council control and accept second-class status forever. We can present our evidence and hope the honest council members outnumber the conspirators. Or, Morrison prompted. Or we show them exactly what happens when you try to cage humanity." Director Cruz leaned forward. "Carl, if we're talking about what I think we're talking about, there's no going back. Once we start down that path, we'll be at war with half the galaxy." "We're already at war," Hayes replied. "The difference is that now we know who our enemies are." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would not submit to council control. They would not place their fate in the hands of those who had betrayed them. Instead, they would show the galaxy something that the conspirators had never expected to see. They would show them what humans were truly capable of when they stopped trying to fit in and started fighting for their freedom. The council members, who had orchestrated the attacks, thought they knew everything about humanity. They had studied human history, analyzed human psychology, and concluded that humans would seek protection when threatened. They were about to learn that they had made a fatal error in their calculations. Humanity had never been very good at accepting defeat. The message from Earth reached every human colony, ship and station within hours. Admiral Hayes had made the decision that would change everything, and now there was no turning back. "Citizens of Earth and all human colonies," Hayes announced in his broadcast. "We have discovered that the attacks on our settlements were not carried out by unknown aliens, but by members of the Galactic Council itself. Species we trusted as allies have been secretly working to destroy our progress and keep us weak." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Across human space, colonists who had been living in fear suddenly felt something else entirely: rage. Effective immediately, Hayes continued, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will defend ourselves by any means necessary. All classified military projects are now authorized for immediate deployment. Director Helen Cruz watched the broadcast from her command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around her, technicians began activating systems that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. Humanity had learned long ago not to show all their cards at once. "Bring the Ghost Fleet online," she ordered. Dr. Nathan Brooks, standing beside her, felt a mixture of excitement and fear as massive hangar doors opened across the solar system. Ships began emerging from hidden bases, vessels that used technology the Council had never seen. The first wave belonged to Captain Morrison and the Defiant, but now they were joined by an entire fleet of similar ships, sleek vessels that could bend space around them, making them nearly impossible to detect or target. Captain Maria Santos took command of the Shadow, a ship that existed in a state between normal space and hyperspace. Captain Alex Turner commanded the Vengeance, a massive battlecruiser armed with weapons that could crack planets. But the most impressive sight was the emergence of the Interceptor-class ships that Chief Engineer Pete Collins had been designing in secret. These vessels could manipulate space-time itself, allowing them to appear anywhere in the galaxy within minutes. The conspirators on Nexus Prime received the first shock when human forces struck their hidden bases simultaneously across 12 different star systems. Ambassador Kelton Voss was in his private chambers when the alarms began blaring throughout the station. His aide, a nervous Zephyrian junior diplomat, burst into the room with panic in his glowing eyes. "Ambassador, the humans are attacking our facilities in the Outer Rim." Voss felt his blood freeze. "That's impossible. Their ships are too slow to coordinate attacks across such distances." "Sir, they're not using their old ships. These vessels appear to be using technology we've never seen before." The reports flooded in over the next hour, each one more shocking than the last. The secret base in the Kepler system destroyed. The hidden shipyard near Vega captured intact. The staging area in the Wolf system completely eliminated. Thais of the hegemony found herself in a similar state of shock. Her species prided itself on superior tactical planning, but the human attack showed a level of coordination that seemed impossible. "How are they moving so quickly?" she demanded of her military advisors. "Our intelligence said their fastest ships needed days to travel between systems." "These aren't the ships in our database," her aide replied. "They appear to be using some form of space-folding technology. They can be anywhere in the galaxy within hours. The third member of the conspiracy, Supreme Chancellor Court of the Altarians, was having his own crisis. His species controlled the most advanced power generation technology in the galaxy. But the humans were using energy levels that shouldn't have been possible. They're drawing more power than their reactors can generate, his chief scientist reported. It's like they've discovered an entirely new energy source. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant as they approached the Zephyrian home system. Around him, a fleet of 30 human ships moved in perfect formation. Each vessel represented technology that had been hidden from the galaxy. Target their orbital defense platforms, Morrison ordered. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We're here to send a message, not commit genocide. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park coordinated the attack with inhuman precision. The human ships moved like a single organism, their weapons striking with surgical accuracy. Within minutes, the Zephyrian defenses were neutralized. Open a channel to the planetary government, Morrison commanded. The blue-skinned Zephyrian who appeared on screen looked terrified. Please, we surrender. Don't destroy our world. We're not here to destroy anything, Morrison replied calmly. We're here to deliver your ambassador back to you, along with evidence of his crimes against humanity. On Nexus Prime, the remaining council members watched in horror as human forces systematically dismantled the conspiracy's infrastructure. Species that had seemed weak and primitive just days before were demonstrating military capabilities that rivaled the galaxy's greatest powers. Admiral Hayes arrived at the station not as a supplicant seeking help, but as the representative of a civilization that had just proved its strength. The Defiant and a dozen escort ships docked at Nexus Prime, with a display of force that left no doubt about humanity's intentions. Council members, Hayes announced as he entered the chamber, I present evidence of a conspiracy to destroy human civilization. The holographic display filled the center of the room with captured communications, weapon signatures, and testimony from prisoners taken during the human counteroffensive. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The species represented by Ambassadors Voss, This, and Chancellor Court have been secretly attacking human colonies while publicly offering friendship, Hayes continued. They use technology from multiple council species to disguise their involvement. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species demanded explanations from the accused conspirators. Others called for immediate punishment. A few tried to distance themselves from the entire situation. Voss rose from his seat, his pale features twisted with rage. You cannot prove that the Zephyrian Empire was involved in these attacks. Hayes smiled coldly. Actually, I can. He activated another holographic display showing the captured enemy ship. This vessel was crewed by members of your species, using your neural interface technology. We have 3 prisoners who are willing to testify about their orders. This is fabricated evidence. Dice protested, her mandibles clicking in agitation. Humans are trying to frame us. Then explain this, Hayes said, displaying the intercepted communications between the attackers and Nexus Prime. Your own words. In your own encryption codes ordering attacks on human colonies. The evidence was too complete to deny. Faced with proof of their conspiracy, the 3 species had only one choice left: fight or surrender. Voss made the decision for all of them. If humanity wants war, then war they shall have. The Zephyrian ambassador activated a hidden weapon in his diplomatic quarters, but he had underestimated human preparation. Captain Santos and her Marines from the Shadow were already in position. The conspirators were captured within minutes. As the dust settled, Admiral Hayes addressed the remaining council members. The chamber was quiet now, filled with species that were reconsidering everything they thought they knew about humanity. The Galactic Council was supposed to be a place where civilizations worked together for mutual benefit, Hayes said. Instead, some of you used it as a tool to suppress those you saw as threats. That ends today. What do you propose? Asked the delegate from the Centauri Republic, one of the few species that had remained neutral during the crisis. A new compact, Hayes replied. One based on respect rather than fear, where species are judged by their actions, not their age or perceived power. Those who want to work with humanity in good faith are welcome. Those who prefer the old ways of doing business aren't. The implications were clear. Humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist in the galaxy. They were offering partnership to those who wanted it, and promising consequences to those who didn't. The galaxy was about to discover that when you tried to keep humanity down, you only made them stronger. The final battle for Nexus Prime began when Ambassador Voss refused to accept defeat. Even captured and facing overwhelming evidence of his crimes, the Zephyrian leader activated a hidden signal that called every remaining conspirator ship to the station. "If we cannot control humanity through politics," Voss declared from his detention cell, "then we will destroy them through force." Admiral Hayes watched from the command center as enemy ships began appearing around Nexus Prime. Zephyrian cruisers, hegemony battle fleets, and Altarian destroyers, nearly 200 vessels in total. It was an impressive force that would have terrified most species. "All human ships, this is Admiral Hayes," he broadcast. "Defensive positions around the station. Protect the neutral delegates, but if they fire on us, eliminate them." Captain Morrison brought the Defiant into position alongside the massive space station. Around him, the rest of the human fleet moved with deadly precision. Ships that had been hidden for decades now revealed their true capabilities. The Shadow, commanded by Captain Maria Santos, phased in and out of normal space like a ghost. The Vengeance under Captain Alex Turner positioned itself between the enemy fleet and Nexus Prime civilian sections. Interceptor-class ships appeared and disappeared around the battlefield, striking at enemy vessels before vanishing again. "Enemy fleet is charging weapons," reported Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park from her position on the Defiance bridge. Morrison smiled grimly. "Let them. They're about to learn why it was a mistake to underestimate humanity." The battle erupted across the space around Nexus Prime with a fury that shook the massive station. Enemy ships fired everything they had at the human fleet, expecting to overwhelm them with superior numbers. Instead, they discovered that numbers meant nothing when facing technology they couldn't understand or counter. Chief Engineer Pete Collins had spent years developing weapons that bent the laws of physics. Energy beams that phased through shields, projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and defensive systems that turned enemy attacks back on themselves. The Zephyrian flagship opened fire with its most powerful neural disruption weapons, designed to disable enemy crews through direct mental assault. The beams struck the Defiant's hull and simply stopped. The ship's quantum shielding absorbed the attack and converted it into power for the human vessel's own weapons. Impossible. This screamed from her command ship as human forces tore through her carefully planned battle formation. "Their technology shouldn't be able to do that." Captain Santos appeared behind the hegemony battle group in the shadow, her ship materializing from hyperspace like a nightmare. Her weapon struck with surgical precision, disabling enemy vessels without destroying them. Humanity wanted prisoners, not corpses. The battle that the conspirators expected to last hours was over in 30 minutes. Human forces had captured or disabled every enemy ship, while suffering minimal damage themselves. The galaxy's military experts, watching from the safety of the station, realized they were witnessing a complete revolution in space warfare. As the last enemy ship surrendered, Admiral Hayes received a priority transmission from Earth. Director Helen Cruz appeared on his screen, her face showing both pride and concern. "Carl, the galaxy is watching. Every species with communication equipment saw that battle. How we handle the next few hours will determine humanity's place in the galaxy for centuries to come." Hayes nodded. "What's the situation back home?" "Complete success. Every hidden base, every staging area, every piece of conspiracy infrastructure has been eliminated. We captured enough evidence to prosecute war crimes for the next 50 years. And the other council species? The ones who weren't involved?" "Scared," Cruz admitted. "They're starting to realize that humanity has been holding back this entire time. Some are calling for immediate alliance talks. Others are discussing defensive pacts against us." Hayes looked out at the captured enemy fleet floating powerless around Nexus Prime. "Then it's time to make our position clear." 2 hours later, the emergency council session reconvened. But this time, the chamber was filled not just with delegates but with representatives from species across the galaxy who had come to witness the proceedings. Admiral Hayes stood at the center of the chamber, no longer the isolated figure pleading for help. Now he was surrounded by evidence of humanity's true capabilities and the loyalty of new allies who had chosen to stand with Earth. "Members of the Galactic Council," Hayes began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. Today we have proven that a conspiracy existed to destroy human civilization. We have also proven that humanity is capable of defending itself. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as delegates from dozens of species tried to process what they had witnessed. The question now is what comes next, Hayes continued. Some of you participated in the conspiracy against us. Some of you knew about it and said nothing. Some of you were innocent of these crimes. He activated a holographic display showing the evidence they had gathered. Those who actively worked against humanity will face justice. Those who remained silent will need to decide where they stand going forward. Those who stood with us have our eternal gratitude. Ambassador Kelton Voss, now in restraints and flanked by human marines, made one final attempt at defiance. You cannot judge the actions of superior civilizations, humans. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia. Hayes turned to look at the Zephyrian with cold eyes. Your civilizations are not superior. They're just older, and age without wisdom is simply time wasted. The chamber fell silent as the implications of Hayes's words sank in. For thousands of years, the galaxy had been run by species who believed that age and tradition gave them the right to control others. Humanity was proposing something completely different. We offer a new compact, Hayes announced. Full equality for all species. Decisions made by merit, not seniority. Justice based on actions, not politics. Those who want to build this new galaxy with us are welcome. Those who prefer the old ways are not. The vote that followed was closer than many expected, but humanity's position was ultimately upheld. The conspiracy had been exposed and defeated. The old order was broken. A new age was beginning. 3 months later, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly renamed Freedom Station, watching as ships from dozens of species docked at its ports. The station that had once been Nexus Prime was now the headquarters of the reformed Galactic Alliance. Any regrets? Asked Dr. Amy Rodriguez, joining him at the viewport. Morrison considered the question. About the war? No, about what we had to reveal. Sometimes, and what do you mean? We could have stayed hidden longer. Let them think we were weak and primitive. It might have been safer, Rodriguez smiled. Since when have humans ever chosen the safe path? Morrison laughed. Good point. Besides, I think we're better off this way. At least now everyone knows where they stand. Across the galaxy, human colonies were expanding again, but this time they did so openly and with the protection of the most advanced fleet in known space. The attacks had ended not because the conspiracy was defeated, but because everyone now understood the consequences of striking at humanity. On Earth, Director Cruz was already planning the next phase of human expansion. The galaxy was vast and there were still wonders to discover and civilizations to meet. But now humanity faced the future from a position of strength rather than vulnerability. The question that had started everything, who dares strike at humanity, had been answered decisively. The galaxy had learned that striking at humanity was possible, but surviving the consequences was not. As Captain Morrison watched ships from across the galaxy dock at Freedom Station, he realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had not just survived their first major test as a galactic civilization, they had redefined what it meant to be a galactic civilization. The old galaxy had been ruled by fear and tradition. The new galaxy would be built on respect and cooperation, and at its heart would be the species that had refused to accept defeat. Even when the odds seemed impossible, humanity had earned its place among the stars not through age or tradition, but through courage, determination, and the simple refusal to give up when things looked darkest. The Council had indeed been stunned, but not by the question of who dared strike at humanity. They had been stunned by the answer.